Without providing any evidence, he claimed that he expects fraudulent voting in Tuesday's election in New Mexico.
I'm only here for one reason. They all said, don't come. I said, why? You can't win New Mexico. I said, look, your votes are rigged. We can win New Mexico. We can win New Mexico. You know, we almost won it twice. And let me tell you, I believe we won it twice. Okay, you want to know the truth.
Let's quickly tell you where the two candidates will be heading today, and they will be traveling through several battleground states. Expectedly, Harris and Trump are holding dueling rallies in the state of Wisconsin. Now, Kamala Harris will travel to Wisconsin first for events, then for a Get Out the Vote rally where pop star Cardi B is expected to join her. Also, Donald Trump will hold a campaign rally in Michigan this afternoon before he heads to Wisconsin for a rally in the evening. So ultimately, Wisconsin, the battleground state this time, one of the 7 actually, is going to be the spotlight today. All right, now in the past few weeks, we have discussed issues that are critical to this election, and we have talked about undecided voters who both presidential nominees are trying to sway. We have talked about other demographics of voters based on race, ethnicity and gender. But there is another subsect of voters who are important in this race. Here at WION, we are calling them the paradoxical voters. Let me explain why. Ever since US Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade back in 2022, abortion and reproductive rights have become a heated debate in the country. So much so that this is a pivotal issue this presidential election, especially for women and the women voters. But days ahead of the final voting on November 5th, there are many women voters who are batting for abortion rights. But when it comes to a presidential candidate, they are supporting Donald Trump. As per a survey, as many as 25% women who want abortion rights back the Republican leaders. Well, the reason? For many of these paradoxical voters, economy and immigration are much bigger issues than abortion rights. Women supporting Trump believe that the red camp nominee stance of putting abortion in the hands of the states will increase and regulate access. Now, as many as 10 states have abortion directly on the ballot, where voters will decide on whether states should determine the regulation or will the Roe v. Wade provisions stay intact. Voters in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New York and South Dakota will be deciding the future of abortion rights through direct voting. And to get us some perspective, we are now being joined by Elizabeth Loris. She is the president of E. Loris Consulting and a professor at University of Mary, Washington. Ms. Loris, good to see you again. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for having me on again.
Absolutely. The pleasure is ours. Let me come to you with the numbers we have right now. These numbers are coming from the YouGov poll, and we are tracking 3 swing states this time: Pennsylvania, Michigan and North Carolina. Let me quickly just tell you what the numbers suggest. In Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is at 47, Harris is at a close 48. In Michigan, the margin is a little more. Harris is at 49 and Trump is at 45. And North Carolina, it's actually a little bit of a flip. Trump is ahead with 47 and Harris is 45. 4 days to go for elections. What are you making of these numbers?
Anyone can see, of course, that the race remains extremely tight. Whoever's going to win it's going to win it probably by a nose. It will not only come down to those states and the other of the 7 battleground states, but more likely counties within the states. Some counties are very blue, others are very red. Turnout, early voting turnout, has been phenomenal. It is shattering records in a lot of the counties that really can decide the vote in these states. So you almost need to have like a microscope to look at these battleground states and determine where are the pockets where the Republicans or the Democrats still need to get out those low propensity voters. There still is work to be done. In most states, early voting ends today. Virginia here, people have until tomorrow. And so the parties still can pick up those low propensity votes by getting out there and going door to door.
Right. Ms. Loris, in our news cycle of the last 24 hours, it seems like Donald Trump has taken most of the headlines. This one is coming from New Mexico. He said there, and I'm quoting, he was talking to his supporters and the voters there, and he said, and I'm quoting, "Your votes are rigged. I believe we won it twice in New Mexico." Now, I pulled some data from the election body in the United States. 2016, Hillary Clinton, 2020, Joe Biden, both of them won New Mexico against Donald Trump. Now, because of statements like this, there is a growing fear that Donald Trump might not concede and accept the defeat in case he's handed, Kamala Harris is handed a win. Do you think that is a possibility?
Well, that is certainly his fear. And so, like, the mantra amongst the Trump team and Republicans has been, you know, like too big to lose, too big to cheat. I'm obviously paraphrasing there. And that's why they're really encouraging, like, every Republican of voting age to come out, because if they have overwhelming numbers, then it's going to the cheating that they say, you know, will be going on, just won't be effective. But you mentioned the optics. Yeah, Donald Trump is the master of the optics, and sometimes the Democrats can hand it to him. For example, putting on that apron, you know, and working at McDonald's, you know, that apron over his white French cuffling shirt, his riding around in a dump truck, a garbage truck. The Democrats have handed him a lot of optics. Maybe they should just stick to their own message and stop criticizing and giving him these opportunities that he and his staff are very good at turning to his advantage.
Right, and I think many of the women voters in the US will actually agree to your assessment, because that's one demographic we are closely tracking, and something my writer is calling them paradoxical voters. While they support abortion rights, they're also willing to go ahead and vote for Donald Trump. What do you make of that?
I think that a lot of women, well, first of all, a lot of women are not single issue voters, particularly Republican women. I would say for Democrat women, abortion is probably number one on their list, and they're going to come out and they're going to vote for Harris. Republican women tend to have perhaps a broader view of things going on in the country, you know, the economy, the threat to women's safety because of illegal immigration. And so they're looking at that whole package rather. And also, since the Dobbs decision, abortion rulings are really going to be left up to the states. That's where the action is. It's not the president determining that anymore. And so, as you mentioned, there are initiatives on ballots now at the state level, and that's where people will be voting regarding abortion or pro-life, and not so much at the presidential level.
Right, Ms. Loris, I have so much more to unpack. Just one quick question before I have to let you go, because we are running out of time. We are approaching the weekend, and one would assume that this is when the voters are out and about, either in the public spaces or in front of their television sets, or probably scrolling through their Instagram and TikTok. What is going to be the focus of the two candidates, given this is the last weekend before the big day?
Again, it's just getting out those low propensity voters. Republicans will definitely be trying to get people to come to the polls. Republicans are less likely to vote early. Interestingly enough, Trump is going to be in Virginia tomorrow. That is not a swing state. And
Yes.
so they might be looking at internal polls and putting their effort where their internal polls say they could actually make a difference.
All right, Ms. Loris, thank you so much for speaking with us here on WION. Good to speak to you. I look forward to speaking to you again.
You're welcome.
Now, the elections are, of course, complicated. And speaking of complicated, let's talk about electoral colleges in the US presidential elections. It sounds like a complicated concept at first, but my colleague Dharamjot Kaur simplifies it for you.
The US election process is anything but simple, but today we focus on the biggest factor that determines who wins the presidential race: electoral colleges. In each presidential election, you hear a candidate needs to reach the 270 majority mark to win the election. But what is this number and how is it obtained? Now, these reflect the number of electoral votes needed to cement a victory. You see, there are a total of 538 electoral votes divided among 50 states, and a candidate needs just over half to win. That brings you to the magic number of 270. But how are these electoral votes cast? Let's take a step back. When voters in America cast their ballot, they see the names of the presidential and vice presidential candidates on the ballot paper. But in reality, voters are actually casting their ballot for a group that represents their mandate. These people are called the electors. These voter representatives or electors then go and cast their official vote on the basis of how the state has voted. The Electoral College follows a winner-takes-all approach in 48 of the 50 states. This means that the candidate that wins the most number of votes in the state gets all of its electoral votes. It doesn't matter if the candidate won with 20 votes or 20,000. So how are the number of electoral votes per state determined? It's simple math. Each state has as many electors as it has representatives and senators in the Congress. There are 2 senators for each state, but the allocation of seats in the House of Representatives varies based on the population size. Let's take an example of California, the largest state in the United States. It has 2 senators and 52 lawmakers in the House of Representatives. This gives it a total of 54 electors. Another example, Georgia. The state has 2 senators and 14 representatives in the Congress. Hence, its total number of electors is 16. But just to clarify, the senators and House of Representatives are not the electors themselves. There are separate people for that job. The group of presidential electors is formed every 4 years during the election. They are chosen for the sole purpose of voting for the president and vice president. This year, November 5 is the main election day, and the electors will meet on December 17 to cast the final official vote. The gap between November 5 voting and the date electors cast the vote gives plenty of time for election officials to deal with all kinds of possible scenarios, be it assessing provisional ballots or counting ballots that arrive late. Now you might be wondering, can a candidate who got more votes nationally lose the election? The answer is yes, and it has happened before. In 2016, Hillary Clinton was contesting against Donald Trump. Overall, more voters cast their ballot for Clinton, but it was the Republican candidate Donald Trump who got more electoral votes based on the result of each state. And that is how he won the election back then. The electors are expected to represent the voters' choice in each state, and that is what usually happens. However, there have been some instances in the past where the representatives have voted for a third-party candidate altogether. It happened as recent as 2016, but the number of rogue voters weren't enough to flip the election result. Now, such electors are called the faithless ones. Dramatic, I know, but so are the elections, and a few rogue votes can potentially change the game. Interestingly, states have no regulation to bind the electors, but several states have criminal penalties to try and prevent the faithless electors from voting for someone else. Now, the concept of electoral votes has Americans divided over how fair and accurate it is. Many voters feel that a popular mandate nationally should determine who the winner is. But there is history behind how the concept of electoral colleges came to exist. You see, the founding fathers of the United States were divided over the presidential election process. Some favored people's popular vote, others wanted the Congress to vote and choose the president. So they reached a compromise between both, and that gave America the system of Electoral College. Hope this helps simplify the presidential election process for the world's oldest democracy. Stay tuned to WION for more such explainers.
United States is witnessing a crossover of two major events, the presidential elections, of course, as well as Halloween. Take a look at how New Yorkers celebrated the spooky season, but with a touch of political messaging.
Cat ladies vote! Cat ladies vote!
Cat ladies vote! Cat ladies unite!
So this is Trump explaining that dogs and cats were being eaten, which of course they haven't been. So we've made it into a dance and making it ourselves.
I think the upcoming election is really scary, and this is a perfect moment to point out to people that they need to vote and be concerned about things like abortion, because we're on the verge of losing all rights, even more restrictions on abortion and other rights. That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Eating the dogs, eat the cat, eat the cat.
We can move, huh?
Let's now go across to the United Kingdom. Chancellor Rachel Reeves on Wednesday presented the first Labour budget in 14 long years, and now the Britons are divided on whether or not it was fair. Reeves announced the biggest tax increases in 3 long decades, saying that she had to repair the country's broken public services with heavy spending. According to a new YouGov poll, 34% of people say the budget was fair, while 34% say it was not. 32% are unsure. However, only 20% believe it will leave the country better off. Double the number, that is 40%. That's people think that will make things worse. 25% think that it will make no difference. Of the 14 budget measures polled, the most popular has been increasing taxes on flights and private jets, which 81% say is the right thing to do at this moment, compared to only 7% who think it is wrong. Freezing duty on petrol and diesel at its current level and increasing the minimum wage for over 21s from £11.44 to £12.21 an hour were also a topic of discussion among the Britons. Meanwhile, the pound has fallen sharply after budget. Over the last 3 days, sterling has dropped by 1.2%, which is the biggest fall in 18 long months. Now we continue our coverage of Bangladesh. The country's capital that is Dhaka is on the boil, and after attackers set fire to the headquarters of a political party that supported the country's ousted leader Sheikh Hasina on Thursday night. Members of Bangladesh United Minority Alliance held a torch rally in the capital for justice, and the developments in Bangladesh reflected in Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump's Diwali greeting, who slammed the attacks on minorities. According to reports, the attackers stormed the Jatiya Party's headquarters in Dhaka's Bijoy Nagar area, clashed with its members and set the premises on fire. As the attack was underway, a prominent leader of the student protest movement that ousted Hasina called the Jatiya Party a betrayer and accused it of aiding Awami League to target students and people during the protests.
Jatiya Party men and their aide carried out an attack on students and people. This attack left at least 20 injured. They shot fires, you can ask. Jatiya Party, an enabler of Awami League, tried to carry out a genocide like the fascist Awami League did ahead of August 5th.
Jatiya Party is Bangladesh's third largest party, founded by military dictator Hussein Mohammad Ershad on 1st of January 1986. He was the chief of army staff of Bangladesh Army and had seized power through a coup d'etat on 24th of March 1982. He ruled the country as chief martial law administrator till December of 1983. Then in 2014, after the elections, Ershad became the special envoy of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in the Bangladesh Awami League-led government. The latest attack on the Jatiya Party's headquarters comes nearly 4 months following Hasina's ouster. Hasina's Bangladesh Awami League party ruled the country for 15 long years since 2009. Her critics say that the Jatiya Party had acted to give Hasina's rule legitimacy, as other major political parties did not take part in the elections. And Sheikh Hasina fled Bangladesh on August 5th to India, following the student-led demonstrations that turned into an anti-government protest movement. And during the movement, hundreds of students, security officials and others were killed, investigation for which are currently underway. On October 31st, a mega torch rally was held in Dhaka by the Bangladesh United Minority Alliance, highlighting atrocities against minorities by radical groups since Hasina's ouster. The demonstrations were organized to demand the withdrawal of treason charges against Chinmoy Krishna Das, Brahmachari and 19 other Sanatinis from Chittagong. Bangladesh United Minority Alliance have demanded justice and fair treatment of minority community. Also, the people of Botswana have created history. Voters have ended a 58-year-long rule of the Botswana Democratic Party. Incumbent president has conceded defeat.
The evidence is overwhelming. We've lost this election massively, right? And we need to come to terms with it and make space and give opportunity to the newly elected leaders and respect them and support them so that they can succeed, because it's Botswana's success that's most important.
Masisi said that he respectfully steps aside as the president and participate in a smooth transition process before the new leadership's inauguration. The opposition party has snatched a surprise win and defied pre-election polls that had earlier pegged the ruling party for a clear win. But the voters have handed the mandate to Dumo Boko, a 54-year-old lawyer who is now Botswana's president-elect. Boko's Umbrella for Democratic Change, also known as UDC coalition, won the election and obtained a clear majority in the parliament. After much uncertainty, Kenya has a new deputy president. Kithure Kindiki has been sworn in as the new number 2, and after Rigathi Gachagua was impeached. Take a look. And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me, Ananya Datta. Goodbye. I'll see you next week.
The US race to power, marked by high-octane campaign rallies, life-threatening encounters, game-changing presidential debates, the color and the drama, the key defining moments, deep insights and informed analysis. Watch continuous coverage of the US presidential elections 2024 on WION World is One. 1 month since Iran's fierce fire at Israel, there's a rising buzz of fresh retaliatory strikes.
Well, I'm standing at the Palestine Square here in Tehran.
WION is in the Iranian capital, gauging the groundswell, tracking every development. Iran-Israel saber-rattling peaks, as each looks to firm up allies. An eye also on election-bound America and the shades of its West Asia policy ahead. WION tracks all dimensions of a complex, multi-layered picture.
For WION, World is One.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at wion.com.
This week on Inside South Asia, lights, feasting and festivities. All the fervour around Diwali, celebrating the victory of good over evil. But there can be no ignoring the alarming air pollution levels in festival season. Is the seasonal wave of toxic haze over North India a problem with no solution? And a look at Pakistan's terror-disrupted polio drive that's an effort to protect 45 million children. All this and much more on Inside South Asia.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Fine Print. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look at what is making headlines at this hour.
There's a billboard in Hebrew that reads Tufan Digri Daras, that literally translates that there's a storm incoming, referring.
WION is on the ground in Tehran as speculation grows on when and at what scale Iran might carry out retaliatory strikes against the state of Israel. Saber-rattling and threats continue to grow on both sides. The United States has imposed sanctions on 275 additional entities, including 10 from India, for supporting Russia's military-industrial base. Companies from China, Switzerland, Thailand and Turkey have been censured for supplying advanced technology to Moscow. Now, there's been a drug trafficking related shooting in western France that escalated into a huge brawl involving nearly 600 people, according to the French authorities. 5 people, including a teenager, are reportedly seriously injured in the shooting at a restaurant. And China is to allow visa-free entry for a 2-month period to citizens from 9 additional countries, including South Korea, Norway and Finland. No visa is needed for business, tourism and family visits for up to 15 days. The death toll from flash floods in Spain grows to over 205 as 500 extra troops join the search operations for an unknown number of missing people. Thousands are still trapped without electricity or access to running clean water and food as cases of crime erupt in Spain. The United Nations agencies have warned of 22 global hunger hotspots. Acute food insecurity is expected to worsen in Sudan, Palestine, South Sudan, Haiti and Mali in the next 6 months due to multiple escalating factors. The MotoGP race in Valencia has been cancelled due to the floods in Spain. MotoGP organisers have said that they'll announce a new venue and date for the season-ending race. The tension has gripped the streets of Tehran as Iran's leadership has issued a stark warning of mounting a strong response to the Israeli attack on its military facilities. The WION's Anas Malik has been tracking all the developments from Tehran and has sent us this report. Take a look.
Exactly 1 month ago, Iran launched 180 missiles at Israel, some of them breaching its multi-layered air defense. And after weeks of warning of a retaliation, Israeli fighter jets did attack Iran, but the scale of the assault was nowhere near matching its preceding war rhetoric. Israel claimed that it targeted strategic Iranian assets, including its vital air defense facilities and missile propellant manufacturing capabilities. Faced with a deadly chain of retaliatory responses, Tehran now faces a critical strategic dilemma. While in public, Iranian officials have downplayed the impact of the Israeli strikes, the regime is having to weigh its options on its next response. Miscalculated military action could provoke more devastating Israeli counterstrikes, potentially threatening Iran's economic and military infrastructure. Iran says it managed to shoot down most of the missiles fired by Israeli jets.
You think you can change the story of domination of a great power called Islam by firing a few missiles? In Operation True Promise 2, you saw how your sky was cracked open. You saw how your missile shield worked.